Welcome to the Aiki Dojo Podcast. I am David Ito, Chief Instructor of the Aikido Center of Los Angeles. And with me is
Ken Watanabe.
And Bill D'Angelo. So our topic today is student-teacher relationship.
the student-teacher, current times, modern times.
And we can discuss all of it because I think what you're hinting at is that there may be an evolution of how that relationship developed.
Oh, yeah, it was a very different style of learning prior to 1868, the Meiji Restoration. I mean, prior to that time, it was only clans
And
and families. So you only taught the people in your immediate clan or the people in your immediate family.
so that in the pre-Meiji period, what you're saying in a sense is that the student just was pipelined into whatever the available martial art was for their clan and their family. There was no choice.
Right, because battles were coming.
Right.
And you had to be ready.
I'm curious, when did people first start like swordsmanship training? How old would you be if you got put into that program?
Technically, it's the 6th day of the 6th month of the 6th year.
Whoa, that's super.
That's when you start training. Or being introduced. Prior to that time, you're just a kid. But on the 6th day of the 6th year of your life, in the 6th month, you start training.
That's incredible.
Well, it's a different time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's no like holding hands and they're like, you got to get going.
I have to ask a question. Is there a reason why it was during that specific time that you started?
I don't know. It's probably some divinity thing. 666.
That's true.
But it's not like this. It's not June of every year. It's the 6th month of your year. So if you're born in, I don't know,
April,
it'd be October.
right?
I would imagine. I don't know. That's something I never really thought about looking up. Like, why is it the 6th day of the 6th month of the 6th year
Of your life.
of your life?
That's weird because usually Japanese people don't celebrate birthdays. They celebrate the day you passed away.
But it's not celebration of birthday. It's just that's when you enter into
Training.
formalized training.
Okay. I should say your date of birth wasn't really acknowledged that much.
So maybe, but then it might be the sixth month of that year. It's not necessarily the doctor. I don't really know, but that's you would start your training around that time.
I mean, I know in like contemporary United States training for martial arts, most martial arts, we separate children and adults. Do you know if during that time were people separated by age group?
I'm sure they were.
Yeah, they must know that. It doesn't make sense.
See, like a 40-year-old man's beating up on a 6-year-old kid or something like that. Yeah, it's like, but that's the lingo.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting, going back to that historical time period, I think students today very much have a consumer, not everybody, a lot of people have a consumer mentality. They shop around, they look at what's close to them. There's all these extraneous reasons why people pick a particular school in martial art. But it sounds like, what do you think the benefit was from your perspective as a teacher for people getting in the pipeline that early? Like, what was the advantage to that?
Well, I mean, you may have to fight.
So you need to be ready.
You have to be ready. So you can't go, well, we'll start training when he's 18. 18, you're like
Already in battle.
well, you're not only already in battle, but you're looking down the pipeline of, oh, I'm retiring now.
Right.
Right? Like for retirement, it was like in your 40s.
Right.
So you can't be starting your training at your 20s.
Right.
And then by the time you really get a good kip going, you're like, oh, I'm 40. No, you got to be good by the time you're 18.
Yeah, a lot of these soldiers, I heard they were like 13, 14, 12. And they always wanted to grow a mustache. So if you fell in battle and they took your head to get your bounty or reward, they want to make sure that you're not mistaken for a girl.
Oh, interesting.
Or a child.
Or a child.
Or a child.
Yeah, so, when you grow a mustache, you're a man. You're a man, you can fight. And hopefully from the 6th year to, 7 years until you go into battle, hopefully you get, skill to be able to do something.
Yeah. Do you think both of you, but I guess this question is initially for you, Sensei, like, if the student doesn't have to worry about finding the teacher, from a pedagogical standpoint, is that an advantage for young students to just be put into the system and not have to think about, oh, I want to choose this person or choose that person?
You're talking about pre-1868?
Yeah, pre-18.
No, it was horrid. Like,
It's horrible.
you think about, like, I was reading this in preparing myself for this podcast. I was reading this book, and this person who did traditional Japanese comedy was talking about his training, and he said every time he made a mistake, his grandfather slapped him,
Yeah,
and that he remembers every
slap.
well, he remembers every lesson that came at the end of the slap.
Wow.
And they talked, he was talking about being really young, and his first stage performance, he got scared and peed his pants on stage, and then they beat him. So, but like, I think, like, yeah, it's like, it's not that it's easier or better. It's like, these people are being forced to perform,
Right.
and there's no leeway of like, oh, well, you'll pick it up as you go.
Right.
You're gonna suck for a while. No, you had to be on.
Sink or swim.
Yeah. And then, if you watch like old Japanese movies or Chinese movies, they always talk about, oh, the eldest son has no talent. And then, but you see, they identify that person right away as having no talent.
Yeah.
And then they just shipped you off, and then you're here helping, and you're such a disappointment to your father. Because because somehow, some way, when you were 7 or 8 years old, they're like, this guy can't be taught.
Right. I have a question on that. For let's say it's a clan martial arts training. Did the new master, as the old master, since they passes away or retires, it sounds like you're saying like that master's children would be first in line to being the teacher, or was it not the case?
Not always the case.
Not always the case.
What if the person has no talent?
Right.
And so that's why you watch all these Japanese samurai movies. The Ronin is going around trying to find a gig, to become some lord's sword teacher.
Right. Right.
And that usually it's someone who has a lot of battle experience, or someone who has dueled a lot, but not just some guy who goes, I am a 5th degree black belt. They go, oh, well, you should come in here and teach. No, like, you'd have to fight that person who's teaching the class, and then if you defeated him, then you got to be the teacher.
Right. Right. That I am familiar with. That there was dojo storming.
Yeah, the dojo yabare. And so that's where this whole dojo storming thing came from, is that if you could storm their school, beat their students, and then beat the teacher, you could take the school over.
But technically, in a dojo storm, usually, I mean, you see this dramatized in endless movies, right? And this is all over Chinese, Japanese movies. The senior students have to go first, though, right? I mean,
Not the senior. You throw some fodder, that
fire them out.
that 5th Q person, to tire them out, or to see what they got. And then you go, okay, I know their secret technique. We know how strong they are. And then you beat your way to the top, and then the teacher goes, fine, I'll take you on, even though you've fought 10 people already and they're tired. And that's the controversy with the Eiji Yoshikawa's book, Musashi. Everybody talks about the Yoshiokas. But when you go to the Yoshiokas, the registrar, there's no Miyamoto Musashi signed in to fight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so they said it's just a story that came out of Eiji Yoshikawa's Musashi.
Right.
But as we think about this idea of like teacher and student, and I don't think in those days that there was a teacher-student relationship.
I would say back then it was your typical subordinate and superior relationship. You just listened to whatever your superior said without question. You just followed it. And your hope is that your superior had enough sense to not say anything crazy or incorrect or wrong.
Are you hinting at, Sensei, that there wasn't a student-teacher relationship in the sense that if martial skill was all that mattered, martial preparation for battle, that the teacher didn't have additional concerns, the mental well-being? No, yeah, that was completely not part of training.
Because they thought it was you either have it or you don't. You either have that fighting spirit and you will fight and win and survive, or you'll just cower and you'll be fodder and you'll die. But yeah, they did not care about your mental toughness or your spirituality.
Or morality.
No, or morality, but they were supposed to beat you and develop that toughness.
You're talking about the mental state ability of the student, right?
Yeah.
Like back then, being good at martial arts was pretty much completely up to the student. If the student didn't have it, he didn't make it. If he had the will, the talent, the fortitude, the perseverance, there's a chance that he may get something from the teacher.
But it was the teacher's desire that this student that they had that was the son of of the Lord.
So there's the reputational component to it.
Yeah, and they could move up to a higher class house, higher class clan, get paid more money, but like they didn't really concern themselves with their spirituality or mental toughness because there was no time for that.
Right.
But there's this whole idea that the training is supposed to develop that inside of you because they believed in this thing called like seishin kyoiku, that it's spiritual training, that when you suffer either mentally and or physically, that suffering will create this spiritual person. And so that's why the training was just harsh. When you made a mistake, the teacher slapped you.
Or worse.
Or worse. But I mean, you're talking about like the people in the clan all have status.
So you can't rough them.
Okay, like gouge out the person's eye because they made a mistake. They were harsh on you, but everybody there was already living that warrior life. Right. So if they're like, okay, we're all going to do 1,000 push-ups. There wasn't, so you go, I can't do 1,000. You look over, an old man is doing, 1,000 push-ups. And you're like, a guy with one arm who so desires to be there is doing all the push-ups. So you go, oh, I got to do it too.
Yeah.
But that, they couldn't just like come up and, it also depends on your station. Like if you're the Lord's son, they're not going to hit you. And then, but even though the Lord's like, you better hit my son, I need you to make him
train him
tough.
Right.
But then everybody there already is trying to be tough because they're going to go off to battle. Right. They're like, look, I need to learn this because this is life or death.
Well, right before the podcast, Ken and I were talking about Amegaru and the scene where the lead character samurai is testing or applying through demonstration to this daimyo.
Yeah, his interview.
And I noticed like there's a really like tough scene in that he fights two people with a bokken, and the lord of the daimyo, he gets down and he has a yari and they fight. And then he accidentally drives the lord into the water or the river.
He doesn't accidentally.
Wow, I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe you should tell that part and all.
Well, no, I mean like he got into it.
Yeah.
It was having a good time. And then the Lord was having a good time. And then he went too far.
Right. The reason I brought the story up is I was wondering what both of your opinion of that is, because it seems like that's a really interesting dynamic, because you have this senior swordsman basically applying to be the teacher, I'm assuming, right? Or something like that in their school. And the applying samurai, as you say, he overstepped his bounds. Like he went past the social barriers in that scenario.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if you watch Lone Wolf and Cub, how, I can't remember his name but how he won the opportunity to be the Shogun's executioner. Do you remember the scene?
I know the scene. I read the comic books and everything.
They got into a fight. They're dueling, and then the guy turned his sword toward the Lord, and then he stood in front and said, "How dare you raise your sword to the Lord of the clan or whatever?" The guy was like, "No, we're in a duel," and then he was ruled disqualified because he committed a faux pas.
Yeah, he pointed his sword, his weapon was pointed at the Lord, and Ogami Ito just happened to position himself between the sword and the Lord, and then just doing that implied that he was protecting him.
He's worthy. So it's interesting, like we were talking about how the teachers didn't really have extra concerns for their students other than their capability and their skill. But it sounds like you just looking at these two examples, the teachers are still under certain social rules.
Well, the teachers are certain socials, but everyone is.
Right.
You're not supposed to point the sword or weapon at the Lord. you're not supposed to show your feet to the Lord. You're not supposed to, when that person walks by, you're supposed to get down on both knees or one knee. You're supposed to bow all these things that you already know as a person within the clan. So no one's saying this is where you bow.
This is a no.
You already know because you've grown up in that.
Yeah, everything is like the behaviors already been instilled in you, probably from before that 6 years, 6 months, 6 day. You already know how to behave in a way that's not going to get yourself killed.
So when for the student, because I know we're kind of like going at the student first, after the Meiji Restoration and people weren't allowed to walk around with weapons.
The way this whole martial arts, quote unquote martial arts thing came about is that when the Meiji Restoration happened in 1868,
Right.
There were no more samurais.
Right.
So I am an expert at the sword, or I'm an expert at the sickle and the chain. I know, what do I do?
Right.
So to not cause an uprising, they said, okay, the government will certify you as a teacher and you can go out and now find students. And so this is how you now made a living.
Right.
And so you go out and now hawk your wares as a yari teacher or naginata teacher or something like that and get students and make a living. Because you're just a soldier. What do soldiers do? They fight. We got to get these people out to fight. You know what? I'm going to certify you as the Tokugawa's yari teacher. Oh, then you go out and become a businessman.
And that was a safe exploration of martial skill out of the political context, in a sense.
Yeah, and then you're out there now being a business person trying to get students to make money.
Yeah, I mean, if you were one of those guys, like, for example, I read stories about jujitsu people, like masters. They got just put on a sideshow and do jujitsu demonstrations. Like you were what are those called? Busker. You're a busking.
Yeah.
You're a busking doing jujitsu, and you didn't have to do that. Was your livelihood. It's so sad. Like being a Navy SEAL, like look at me rappel from this like tree, and you're like, oh, that's awesome, But yeah, they're desperately trying to. All they knew was how to fight.
Yeah, if you watch, different movies, you'll see a tinge of that.
Yeah.
Like the Iron Monkeys walking by and these people are doing like these contests of qigong and kung fu. If you watch, there's a famous kung fu movie where the really strong teacher's sitting outside a brothel and it's raining, and then him and the student. Oh, I think it was Once Upon a Time in China. Him and the student are sharing like a bowl of stolen soup. And then the prostitutes in the window, they go, oh, look at this, and then just like laughing at this. He can fight, but he can't even eat for himself. And then the guy's like so shamed, and then he wants to become famous and make money and do all these great things. But then he just takes the route of a person who goes and kills people for money.
Could teachers after the Meiji Restoration be financially successful?
Well, yes, the way they became successful is that they were already people that had come from a family that excelled in warfare or attained some valor. And so they had patrons. Oh, since they had patrons, a person would just come and leave an envelope of money and say, oh, this is for the teacher to take care of the teacher. You see it in Seven Samurai when they're like scraping up rice to feed them.
Right.
And then the young samurai goes, oh, how disgraceful, and just throws money on the ground and goes, go get rice. To not shame the teacher as having to stoop so low to beg for money.
Right.
Which is Akinashin, what's it, the businessman's Anaikomjo?
I can't remember.
The businessman will never bow his head unless to pick up a penny.
Yes, but the samurai is not supposed to be concerned with things like money. That's the lowest thing. Back then, that was the lowest thing to be concerned by is money. So the merchant class was at the bottom.
Yes.
So if you're a samurai, you didn't concern yourself with money. What was that thing? Like you put the toothpick in your mouth, even though you're starving, to show that, I'm fine, even though you're dying inside. That's the samurai had their pride, right? Their dignity. Yeah. That's a better word for it. Their dignity.
So after 1868, you can now go get students. So you're going to wealthy households and saying, I will train your son, or in the way of the samurai, I will, you're trying to get.
So is that where it expands to not just martial skill, but to morality, social responsibility,
No,
enlightenment?
it was already kind of that way built in, because, it went samurai class, farmers, tradesmen, and then business people. So farmers and tradespeople and martial artists already have like a ethic. And then but it really became a big thing is after World War II. But prior to that time, it wasn't really like a huge thing.
One of the questions I asked when you're kind of talking about this from the point of view of the student, all of us who studied more or less Aikido history, you hear that when Sensei founded Aikido and then Aikido, that it was more restrictive in terms of who could become a student. So you move away from the clan and the family, but it sounds like there was still a period in early Aikido where like a random person on the street couldn't come to Hombo Dojo and knock on the door and say, I want to be a student.
It's because Sensei didn't have time for that. Right? He didn't have time to, you come in and they go, okay, this is how you hold the sword.
I mean, yeah, it was still, even though the family system was not a thing anymore. I mean, I'm sure it is still in certain things, but it was still very, very exclusive. Japanese people, you have an in group and an out group. You're part of our group, you're in. If you're not part of our group, then you're out. So it was still very exclusive. And when it comes to something like Aikido, my understanding is Aikido is like post-grad studies for martial arts. So like Ito Sensei said, Sensei was not going to teach you how to take ukemi. He wasn't going to teach you how to keep your balance. He wasn't going to teach you how to hold a sword and how to cut. When you came to Aikido, you already knew how to issue power. Your timing and spacing was probably pretty decent. If you're a swordsman, you already knew how to cut with a sword. If you're a judo guy or a jiu-jitsu guy, you already know how to take ukemi. And back then, everybody knew how to take ukemi. Most people knew how to handle a weapon. So you just came in and essentially just refined your skill to the upteenth degree. He had no time to be, he had no.
When did it kind of shift away from you needed a recommendation to get in?
After World War II.
After World War II, yes. Yeah.
After World War II, remember, so the occupation force, the Americans are occupying Japan, they outlaw martial arts. And then some person, I'm not really sure who, went to them and said, oh, no. Martial arts is spiritual training, right? It's to make you a better person. Look at this Aikido. And then, Sensei's maybe throwing somebody around. They go, see, it's a non-violent martial art.
Right.
And then Aikido, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that Aikido was the first art to come back. Other arts were doing it on the down low, in the shadows, but Aikido was the first one allowed to come back because of all the politicians and high-ranking officials that did Aikido.
Yes.
And then and that's why some people believe that Sensei moved to Iwama from there, because Aikikai in Tokyo was what they showed the government.
So like the public face.
Yes.
Yeah. And Iwama was the private face.
So I mean, the story is like Sensei retired to the countryside, and then that left Shomaru Ueshiba Kishomaru to run the Aikikai Foundation, if I'm not mistaken.
In the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah, that's the Cliff Notes version.
Is that also, I mean, this is sort of off topic, but just curious, is right around that time period, I don't have the dates, is when things, more of the Do movement in martial arts was front and center.
Everybody became Do.
Everybody became Do.
Judo, Kendo,
for the reason that you're
Karate-Do, Aikido, all of them.
I mean, it's basically, back then, it was just optics, because they were still practicing really hard in a martial way. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just, we're not killing each other, but yeah, we're still practicing super duper hard. So
we're talking about how things develop in martial arts from clan or family to a more public institution. our topic today is student-teacher relationship. How does that development manifest in the student-teacher relationship? Like, what is your takeaways in that transition?
It's not really a transition. It's all the same. It's been the same since the beginning of teaching martial arts. It really comes down to just one thing: shinin, trust. Do you trust the teacher enough to follow the teacher? Does the teacher trust the student enough to teach them everything?
But I'm guessing, taking it what you say as face value, though, that people don't actually discuss trust. It's a process that happens in the background.
It's something that the teacher notices in the student and goes, "Oh, I think I could trust this person." Or the teacher notices in the student and goes, "I don't think I could trust this person."
Yeah, I mean, even in China, if the teacher did not trust the student, a lot of times they would not show the footwork. They only showed in Chinese martial arts. If you know the footwork, I don't even know how to say it in Chinese, but the saying goes, if the student knows the footwork, he can beat the teacher. So the teacher, that was his ace in the hole, the footwork. So a lot of times in these forums, a lot of the usage is hidden. Even now, experts don't know what the usage is in a form, even though the form has been passed down. So
The meaning got lost.
yeah, the meaning got lost. So if the teacher does not trust the student will never get everything. In Japanese martial arts is the same thing too. Everything in Japanese culture is like, how says it, trust.
So trust is like the structure, like the foundation of the student-teacher relationship. I guess one question would be, from the student's point of view, if they don't trust the teacher, they leave, right? I guess that's what happens. They just,
Today or
after World War II, day.
yeah, today they're fickle. They say, I want pasta today, or tomorrow I want pizza, and then they just go there.
Right.
And then you have all these famous martial artists that ascribe to the, variety is the spice of life. So they do karate, they do judo, they do BJJ. You're very hard pressed to find a person that's below the age of, I don't know, 40 or 50 that's a singular martial artist. Most people go, well, I dabble in a little bit of jiu-jitsu and BJJ. Because every fight ends on the ground. And so today it's very hard pressed to find people that will dedicate their life to one way. But how many of these people left today are like real martial artists? I don't even know if I'm a real martial artist. And I try to live that way. I try to really focus on one thing. And I go, I don't even know if I am.
I mean, nowadays, not to digress, but in the modern world, there's so many things happening. In the old days, like 1886, 1888, you didn't have Facebook, you didn't have TikTok, you have all these, you have the internet. You just had training, you ate, you slept kind of thing. Maybe you know.
All right, so both of you talking about from the student's point of view, there's a shift. And it people now, sounds like from your description, people are not willing to trust their teachers. Maybe, I don't know, is that both of you are saying?
I don't know.
I mean, Furia Sensei told me a story about when he became Yamashita Sensei's student. And Furia Sensei knew this story, and I'm sure you guys know this story, where when the student goes to the teacher, the teacher goes to the student, I will be the most selfish, unreasonable person you will ever meet. If I say this white paper is white, it's white. If this white paper is black, for you, it's black. So, Sensei, being Sensei, knew all this cultural stuff, but he told me when Yamashita Sensei told him those words, it hits completely different.
And then the bishop, Yamashita Sensei, goes, this piece of paper is black. It's white, right? And
Yeah.
What color is this paper? And the sensei goes, oh, black.
Yeah. But when I first heard it, I was like, that's nuts. That's like being in a cult or something. But later on, I realized that's how much you trust your teacher. Your teacher says black, yeah, hi, it's black. Because you never know if he may tell you something a piece of instruction, then you think, no, that paper is white, but no, it's actually black. And then you miss out on this crucial piece of teaching just because you thought you knew better.
I think people are going to have a really hard time understanding that.
No, I had a hard time understanding that when I was younger, and he told me that story, and I was like, that's nuts.
How did it change for you?
I kept on teaching and practicing, and, I was doing the same thing over and over and over and over, like just delving deeper into training and the culture of martial arts. I was like, I understand now. That's what it is. So that's how much you have to trust your teacher.
Because when both of you are talking about this story, I think of if you grew up in like the sort of Western university system where everything is subject to analysis and critique, that's a hard story to internalize. So how does realizing that works make the student-teacher relationship does it make it more effective, or is it?
I mean, like Sensei said, like back then, if you're a Japanese student, you already understood what it meant to undergo shugyo, like this ascetic training. You already expected that. Like I grew up kind of in the Japanese world being, I won't say abused, but you were brought up that way. When it came to the dojo, I was like, oh yeah, this is right. Yeah.
Sensei, have you ever had that similar conversation with students?
No, and my experience with free sensei is a lot different than because I'm a natural skeptic. So I would be like, what the heck? No. But the thing I'm also a good judge of talent. And I can see, oh my God, free sensei is so good.
Right.
And then I just watch and I go, oh my God, like look at when he did that. Look at the things he says. Like, I don't know. I mean, if he held up the paper, I understand the game and I would be up, yeah, it's black.
Yeah. I mean,
but I would just be saying that. I don't believe it. See, that's the thing is that Japanese people have what the the shinji, they believe. Is it shinji?
is it belief? Is it believe or the belief that everything will be okay?
I don't know, because in Japanese acupuncture, someone told me that, when I went to Japan to study acupuncture, the Japanese acupuncturists believe that every person gets what they need. And I go, but what if they don't get better? They got what they need. Right. But the thing is, the reason why they got what they need, but that they naturally believe.
So it's almost like a state of mind.
Yeah.
That both the teacher and the student must have. I mean, you've heard the story about like, and I learned this from Sensei, the story is that this teacher-student relationship, they say, is like both of them are firing arrows into the air, and then the relationship is you try to hit both arrows
Yeah, I remember
in mid-air, and then that's when the transmission happens. And then when you think about it, you're like, that's impossible. Like, those are the chances between a teacher and student that the teacher's message will get to the student. Because sometimes the student doesn't even fire the arrow. He just fires into the ground.
But when did Free Sensei's arrow hit your arrow?
Oh man, sometimes I think about that, and it might have been a bunch of close calls. I mean, it might have been all close calls. So it may have never hit. I'm not really sure. Because I don't consider myself that great. I'm just doing it as quickly as I can.
And one thing is listening to both of you, you said something super interesting. So we started our conversation talking about pre-Meiji relationship between student-teacher in your clan school. But that it was not perfectly hereditary. You could have someone who demonstrates martial valor or dueling capability, and they take over the school. But when I asked you, like, did you ever have a conversation like this with Sensei? Your response was, well, one thing I realized was the skill and the talent. And then that allowed me to trust.
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. And then
yeah. So it's similar. It's a very similar dynamic. It's just over a couple hundred years, we're still in that same mode. I mean,
you know, normally people are like, oh Sensei, oh, that's fake. I'm going to fight him. And then, Sensei makes a believer of them. Sumo people, karate people, judo people, kendo people, kickboxers, swordsmen. And you go, this little guy, what's he going to do? And he's Aikido, and, I imagine their eye is not developed enough to realize, oh, it's working.
Right.
And then they try to take this guy on and you just dump them on their butt, I mean, Jigoro Kano once said, Aikido is my ideal judo. He had the eye to recognize that Sensei was the real thing. But that's two high-level martial artists who are speaking the same language.
But Sensei, like we're talking student teacher, right? So how deep into your training did you have that realization about Ruth Sensei? Because what I'm thinking is that my own Aikido training, I started in a different school, and I had a teacher that told me like you need to have the best teacher you can get, and he dropped me off here. But I mean, I don't know that I had any ability to judge good or bad very well at that point in my martial arts training.
The thing is that Furuya Sensei was really good at, he had the air about him. That when he walked in the room, you sat up a little straighter.
Good energy.
When he spoke, you listened. He had the energy, the air, the aura, whatever you want to call it. And that today, I mean, I don't know if I have that. And so people just went, yeah, I'm joining.
Yeah.
They met him.
They feel it.
They feel it. And they go, gosh, this guy, he is so great. And then their eyes are a bit closed, right? And then you're like, he's fat, right? And then he's like, what?
Right.
Because there's something about him that that you go, yes, I believe, right? I trust him.
Then the other thing is, like, I consider myself lucky because what I hear when prospective students come visit the dojo, they go, everybody looks like they know what they're doing. But for me, when I came in, there were a couple of people who are like kind of lost. I was like, oh, okay, so I think I'll be okay. But sometimes if people come in, there's no beginners. Everybody looks like they know what they're doing, and it's super duper intimidating.
From the standpoint of the student, it's really, you have to really kind of want to do Aikido, because Aikido's not really I did it for a couple months, I got Aikido, I go back, and it doesn't work that way. It's a technique that builds upon itself and that it's ephemeral. You can't be really good this year and then take 5 years off and come back and then you can do the same things that you did.
I mean, that's like anything. If you want to get good at it, you have to like it at least. Like piano, take piano lessons. I hate like the kid could hate piano, they're never going to get good. But someone could fall in love with piano and you don't know how good they're going to get.
That's true. And so you get to this place where, how does a student use the relationship with their teacher to get good?
Yes. Not really gamifying it, but maybe it's like adhering to a system maybe, or maybe this kind of gamifying it in a way without being smarmy or dishonest. Like you're all in. You drank the Kool-Aid.
I think that a lot of people, the people that just keep their head down and train, that's a good student. There are people that come in and they're like, hey, Dave, or hey, buddy, how you going?
But it was interesting, you were talking in class today, at the end of class, you were talking about you can come to class with the mindset of just getting the workout. You can come to the mindset of wanting to make progress. And that as a student, if you can combine both of those, it's better, right? Because you can train hard for the workout. But you also are trying to see yourself in a progression of learning, right?
I would imagine. I mean, just coming here for the workout, it takes so long to get good enough that this is a workout.
Yes, it takes very long time.
You should have just went to hot yoga, right? They have the same 13 moves. It's hot, so you're sweating. You walk out, you feel great. This is just such a hard, and I mean, we're not talking about the person who's already has a grasp of Aikido and then uses this as a workout. We're talking about a person who just starts and goes here the first year, first month. I'm here for the workout. Your back is killing you, right? Your wrists are totally wrung out. That's a hard way to get a workout.
Yeah, there are better ways to get a workout. More efficient. But I gotta say, being in Aikido shape is completely different than being in regular shape.
But that's after you get to a certain level.
Yeah, that's after you get to a certain level. Have you guys heard that, you used to take tea ceremony? I used to take tea ceremony. But what I heard was once you find a tea teacher, you are not allowed to switch to another teacher. You have to stay with that teacher your whole life.
All traditional Japanese art.
Yeah, you cannot change. You can oh, you know what? I don't like Ito Sensei, and I don't like Watanabe Sensei. I'm gonna go with so and so down the street. Like another teacher will not accept you.
The art society is more mobile now.
Yeah,
But they would. Most teachers, traditional Japanese teachers, would turn you away.
Return your way because they don't want that trouble, right?
Well, they say once a thief, once a traitor,
Yeah.
once a whatever is always a traitor.
Yeah, like when are you gonna give up on me?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But but then that goes around to the thing that Sensei used to say about teachers is the first thing a student has to do is find a good teacher and you stick with that teacher. And if you are not naturally talented or observant or like for example, Ito Sensei, he's clever, he has an eye to see, for instance, he's a good teacher, I choose you. Whereas somebody else without that skill will just go to ABC Aiki Dojo and then you're stuck with somebody who is probably not qualified to teach anything, actually.
I would say most people, not to start a fight, are not qualified to teach, me included.
Like we're still on the student, right? And the student-teacher relationship. We're talking about how you need a really good teacher who has skill and an aura, right? How does, in this context today, where everything's on the internet, you can talk to a million people, when we were coming up and the internet was kind of in its proto state, I remember for instance, it'd be like, don't go on the internet, don't look on anything. Do you think the current social media culture makes it harder or easier for new students?
Same.
It's the same.
Yeah. In the old days, the teacher told you nothing and you had to figure it out. Today, you have all this information, you still don't know nothing, and we're going to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. That's super deep.
If you were 18 today, how would it affect you as someone who was interested? I know you did other martial arts when you were younger, you were a boxer and things like that. But how do you think, what can we help people that want to get into Aikido or other traditional martial arts to open their mind, to be receptive? Because it seems to me all martial arts, you have all these crazy people on the internet, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, just gibbering on.
It's a pendulum.
Yeah.
In the old days, grappling, wrestling, newaza, groundwork was the lowest form of martial arts. That's what someone with no training can do, is just hold on to you and hold you down. It takes no technique. Today, BJJ and wrestling and all these things are more technically oriented. But in the old days, the least you could do was hold the guy's leg so that your lord chopped their head off. So that they thought grabbing like that was such low level. So today, because of the way competition is structured and fighting is structured, something like BJJ seems very effective.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not effective if there's glass on the ground. It's not effective if the person has a weapon.
Right. Multiple
opponents. So I think as the pendulum swings, it will come back to where people want connection and they want something more sophisticated. They'll get to a place in your life where you go, I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to choke anybody. I don't want to go there and be broed out when I go to these schools. And so it will swing back to where people want to study something more traditional, more effective. In the old days, it was one punch, one kill.
Yeah.
So a karate person practiced their entire career to kill you with one punch
or kick.
But today, that person doesn't train that way, or they don't know how to use it that way, or they feel bad about using it that way. So a person just grabs you, tackles you, gets you on the ground, and then chokes you, and you tap out.
Yeah. I also think there's a I mean, I know that I'm a consumer of media on martial arts, but I mean, we've always had boxing competitions. Now you have MMA competitions, but a lot of them, what people forget is it's entertainment, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
It's entertainment.
who's makes the most money off of boxing right now? Who's the person?
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul, not a real boxer.
Right. He's an entertainer. He's an entertainer. He's an entertainer.
Not a real boxer. But that's how pro wrestling, pro boxing, pro these things
Developed.
they develop into these things where, like, the person who won, I think he won the gold medal or silver medal in karate in the Olympics. The person who was supposed to face him knocked out his opponent in that round, and then he was disqualified.
Yeah, I remember.
They were disqualified?
Disqualified.
Because it was too fast?
No, because he knocked him out.
Yeah, because
No headshots or something like that.
yeah, because he knocked
Oh.
him out. Yeah, I remember.
Oh, it was not under the rules.
Yeah,
But I mean, it's a martial art, man.
I've never done boxing. I know you have boxing experience. I mean, don't you think like traditional boxers, like that older gentleman, I think in Ireland, who is pretty popular on YouTube now. I mean, they look at Jake Paul and they're like, "Come on."
Nobody who's a real boxer goes, yeah, that guy's a guy.
Yeah.
Because now what happens is, Ken Watanabe is this famous, really strong boxer who's getting toward the end of his career. He doesn't say anything about it. And then I go, hey, Ken, I'm Jake Paul. Let's fight. You'll get paid $30 million. Just sell it. And then you go, shoot, okay.
Yeah.
So any naysayer that's a really great boxer that ends up fighting him afterwards, oh yeah, he really did punch hard because his checks punch hard.
So, and I guess so, to bring it back to the student teacher thing, the reason I brought it up was I think that we're an entertainment consuming culture. Like we love entertainment. Even I consume it.
Well, we are an entertainment consuming culture, but if you notice, people are moving away from professional wrestling.
Because they're got to be 2K fit.
No, and that it's just that there's no substance. Right now, people are coming back to where they want more substance.
Yeah.
And so, people like the Liver King will get figured out for who he is.
Right.
Because the person has no true substance. And so I think people will be coming back to that going, gosh, I want to follow somebody with substance. And the student of today, not that this is right or wrong, they come when they can. When we were students, you came as much as you can because, man,
You do cruise.
today, no, not even Chris, I know. Today's the day where Fruit Sensei showed something awesome.
Yeah.
Today's the day where Fruit Sensei showed something great or the technique clicked.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes,
You know what? It's not.
It's FOMO, fear of missing out on your own progress. Or, for instance, to just drop some nugget. I remember so much that he would say something one time, stick in my mind palace. He would never say it again. I'm like, I'm so glad I came to that class.
Yeah, like one time he did this whole class and based it on yin yang. And then I was in Chinese medicine school at the time, so I was like, whoa, that was awesome. And then afterwards, people were like, dude, explain it to me. And I was kind of like, I mean, the arm is, you can't show your waki because that's yin. And I couldn't do any justice to it. But afterwards, people go, was that true? And I'm all, yeah, based on yin yang, it was all true. But I couldn't sit here and be like, well, you said basically this and tell you verbatim because the whole time you were just jaw open. Wow.
Yeah, I think I wasn't there. I wish I was at that class too.
Like he told us one story that I asked you about the other day, and I couldn't remember what the punchline of the story was, but it was just that the person was challenged to make 10,000 arrows. And then he's like, okay, I can make 10,000 arrows. And then he's like laying back and sleeping. And everyone's like, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. And then like an hour before he was supposed to deliver his 10,000 arrows, they see him taking a boat down the river. The opposite army shooting all the arrows at him. And he pulls up. He goes, here's your 10,000 arrows.
It's fun.
But I don't remember what the setup was or the punchline. I just always remember that story. Remember, I asked you, I go, what was that? And we were both like, I remember that, but what was the thing he was talking about? So that's the thing is like in the old days, you didn't miss class because Fruit Sensei was going to do something that was so basic and Kihon that, and then say something, you just go, wait, what?
Yeah. you're like, oh my God, I think I got it now. I understand now.
And then you want to be like, you know,
Want to practice it.
yeah. And then if you missed it, you're like, everyone's like, dude, yesterday was awesome. You should have been. You were supposed to do this. And you're like,
Damn it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I gotta say that sometimes these nuggets of wisdom, they just fall on your body and fall away. Like if you don't have the proper training, the experience,
You can't internalize it.
yeah, it won't you say, oh, what does that mean? I don't know. Like, yin yang.
yeah, that's why I tell you, we're like, he was,
Yeah, that's why, like, for me, like, I wanted to, like they say, what's the word? Hamne.
Yeah.
You forge your body
Right.
into the shape of the sword, and then is a polishing, and all of that forging, after polishing, all the beauty comes out of your training, and you're like, you don't want to miss the ton. You don't want to miss being forged.
Right.
Just the training just pounds into you, and you get the Aikido body, and then Sensei just drops this little thing. Oh my God, the piece of the puzzle just went into like,
the cogs started moving.
yeah. Then you're like level deck. Oh yes. Like I've had that feeling. You've had that feeling too. I've had a feeling like, oh my God, yes. Like you blown away, like, whoa.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, the right piece of information at the right time.
So both of you are super expressive on this point, which is great. And one of the things I was going to ask you both is, what you're describing is like an epiphany kind of situation that happens unexpectedly, and you have to be ready for it.
Yeah.
But it's also it's a very serious, like having a mindset to be available for that. And I think sometimes, because I think also like a lot of people, whenever they do something and they're not at work or they're not taking care of their children, they just want either to empty their mind and not be doing mindless stuff, playing whatever, Minecraft or whatever, or they want to enjoy themselves. But what you're describing is a different kind of pleasure, it seems to me, which is this sort of pleasure of advancement, understanding, change.
Yeah, like what did Sensei described it as, like, Aikido is not fun.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be fun, like
but not
we're going at it. But he said something interesting. He was like, doing something like Aikido, Iaido, any kind of sophisticated pastime, you get, for lack of a better word, the satisfaction,
The fulfillment.
you feel fulfilled. Like, I know something that very few people in the world can do or know about. And I worked for it and I earned it. It was just given to me on like, like I did a Google search on Aikido. Oh yeah, I'm Aikido master now. You like blood, sweat, and tears,
How do both of you as teachers, though, transmit that openness to the student so that they're ready for when it happens?
I don't even know, because it's like, we're talking about okay, so like this is how it looks. We ask Ken, like, hey, when did Sensei's arrow hit your arrow?
Right.
I'll tell you when the Sensei's arrow hit my arrow.
Okay. When was it?
He was falling down and dying and shot a Hail Mary, and then it hit me. Then he died, like a minute later. Like, oh shoot. Right, like that's how, like, he shot a Hail Mary through the crack as the door was closing, and I got hit.
Wow.
And then he went, I get it now.
I hear stories about that all the time. Like the very last thing the teacher does is transmit the teaching, and the student just catches it like that. No one else can see it,
Yeah.
but somehow it's a 2 hours when bam. Like for me, I'm a little bit jealous because I don't think I've ever had what in my head is that 2 hours coming together. I think I've got close. Maybe I might have an understanding, nicked it. But, so he's like, oh, I wish I was there when Sensei died, which is kind of a macabre thing to say. But for martial art, you're like, yeah, to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I understand too.
That's the moment when as the light went out from his eyes is when I knew, oh yeah, I get it now. But like it took, what, 18, 20 years, 15 years to figure out, oh, that was the moment.
Right.
And I remember when I went back to Chinese medicine school after Fear Sensei died, and I was telling one of my teachers, and she said, oh yes, you were connected with your teacher because you were the last one to touch him as he died. And you're like, oh, really? And it is sometimes I feel that way. Someone will ask you something and I'll just say something. And they'll say, how do you know that? And I'll say, I have no idea how I know it. And you look it up in a book. Oh, yeah, it is right.
Interesting.
Right. But like today, how do you give that to the student? How do you teach them that? I don't really know because, like I said, it's a 1 in a million thing. And that most students, they are sacrificial. You are learning to be a teacher and that to sacrifice on them.
Right.
So that, I yelled at that one student and they quit. Oh, and then I have to self-reflect. I have to Hansei and self-reflect and think about, oh, yes, that's why I must stop doing that.
But then sometimes the student that you yell at and get mad at, sometimes that helps them. Would you say it's like just dumb luck, or it's just dumb luck that you find the kind of student that is just strong, clever?
I wouldn't say it's dumb luck. It's just that's the way it is. Like the luck. You were lucky enough. The all-stars lined up, and then that guy walked in, and then that person ends up being the one, or ends up helping you, or whatever. But it's just luck. I believe it's luck because
I think so.
I can't say that I somehow masterminded this thing and
Right.
and Steven just walks in, he's just like this great student, or Miriam, and I'm like, yes, I did that. I'm like, wow, how lucky am I?
Yeah, I mean, we're just lucky that they found us. I'm just lucky I found this dojo.
I mean, one of the things that like really hit me, Sensei, when you were telling that story of like that was the moment where the arrow hit you, or your arrows hit together. Like we've rambled a little bit over the subject, but we have mostly been talking about the point of view of the student. But was that for you, that experience when Fuji Sensei made that transmission to you, is that in your mind when you shifted from having a student mentality to a teacher mentality?
I don't know. I was texting with someone before. They're like, we were talking about like acupuncture school way back when. I was like, oh, that's before I was a teacher, and life was easy.
Life was easy.
I had a job. I had money. I had free time. I went on vacations. I did all these things, and today I don't get those things anymore. And they're like, oh, that's so sad. I go, no, my life is more fulfilling now. But that was the moment where I had to leave being a warrior and go back and then become a teacher, which I have not yet become.
But the transition.
That was the transition. Well, you were there, the transition. You and Jonathan, as Laura said, you going to be the teacher? And I was like, I guess I am.
Yeah. Man, that was a pretty momentous time. It really was. But I mean, I'm just like, both of you have been telling some these amazing stories. As a teacher, like, did you have in your mind the steps you needed to take after Fuji Sensei died, or is it
No,
no?
just stab and steer, man. Just hit the gas, turn the wheel, and try not to crash into something. And like, students are so different today. In the old days, you could not give Fuji Sensei a sentimental gift.
No.
I remember one time I gave him a Barnes and Noble gift card, and he was like, "Do you think I shop at Barnes and Noble? I go to way better boutique big stores and blah, blah, blah." And they just like flicked it back at me, and I was like all dejected, like, "Sorry, this is a Christmas present."
And that part of the teacher-student relationship
It's
is
just sucking up.
yeah, you can't suck up. But if you hit the nail on the head, like you gave Sensei a gift certificate to a bookstore, and you did the research, and then I don't know, you like about to him or
Like the
something,
Bodhi tree.
like the Bodhi trust, that you're like, oh, thank you, exactly, because I mean, you've gotten gifts. You're like, this person put no effort into. I don't even like Seeds candy.
Yeah, yeah. Like the other day, someone gave me this like cream pie, and I was like, "Thank you," and then I'm like, "I can't eat any of this."
In a way, it's unfair because they're trying to do something nice for you through no fault of their own. But in martial arts, it's a completely different game. It's like you can just, oh, Sensei, here you go. Here's some Nessie Quick. I can't drink milk. What am I going to use Nessie Quick for?
You guys are both hitting on something really interesting, which is I didn't have that level of interaction with Fuji Sensei that both of you did. But what you're talking about is that in the student-teacher relationship in the context of, let's say, gift giving, holidays, birthdays, things like that, gratitude, there's almost like a set of unspoken rules.
Oh my God. There's
Yeah. But that's a minefield for the new student, right?
well, no, like okay, so Christmas, no gifts, or else you had to. I mean, if your gift wasn't like so
Thoughtful.
well thought out, like spear perfect, yeah, like you'd better not do it. And then Christmas, we would have to go to dinner or lunch with Sensei.
Right.
And then I hated it because I would always get like breakfast or brunch. So I'd have to pick up Sensei, take him to brunch, and then somehow get out the door, go to my family's house, get in the car, drive to Santa Barbara 2 hours, and then eat dinner there, whatever it was. And I was always trying my best to skate out on Sensei. And like it was not fun.
Yeah.
Right. But that was part of the thing. One of us would take him to breakfast, one of us would take him to dinner, somebody would take him for lunch or something like that. And then it was so much work, and then you really couldn't enjoy yourself. And then like you guys could let your hair down during dinner and lunch and meals. Yeah, I really didn't feel like I could.
No.
So you just be sitting there, and then whatever you ordered or ate was scrutinized. Everything else, and then you can't let your hair down because the etiquette, getting there, getting him out of there, eating, getting him back in the car, driving home. At any moment you would let your guard down, let your etiquette out the window, and then you would do something stupid, and then he would just go off.
Is that type of relationship training? It sounds like it's also training.
It's training. It's complete. It's
training.
It's like being on a military
Operation.
For the longest time. Anything with the dojo was like a military operation that you had to have a plan. You had to exfil, infill. You had to have all kinds of like
Contingency.
Yeah, contingency plans. Because when anything messed up, and you're like, I don't know, Sensei would go off on you.
But that was good training because
It was good training.
you would sit there and be like, oh, he kind of just pushed the food around the plate.
Doesn't feel well.
He doesn't feel well, or he doesn't like it.
Right.
So on the way home, you'd say,
You want a hamburger?
you want to go get dumplings? He'd go, oh yes, let's go get dumplings. And then you go eat dumplings or whatever it is. But like you had to have your game
On.
and then you can't say, Sensei, would you like more water?
You're supposed to instinctively know he needs water.
Right. So your etiquette had to be like so on point. And then first Sensei pays because the old way seniors always pay.
Yeah.
So then you had to kind of order a certain way. You had to like
Be mindful.
You can't order too small because then that makes Sensei feel bad because then he can't order what he wants. So you ask him, what are you getting, Sensei? And he goes, oh, I'm getting the filet mignon. So you probably get something right around the same price.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember Sensei's stories about when he was with Chiba Sensei? He would, during these seminars, I thought it was insane. Sensei used to cook for Chiba Sensei.
Wow.
Because Chiba Sensei preferred a certain kind of food. This is during a seminar. He would practice, come back, cook, come back and practice, do all these things. And I was like, don't think I could do that.
Is that kind of training gone?
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
It is and it isn't. It was really interesting. I was reading this book to prepare for this on student-teacher relationships in Japan.
Yeah.
And one of the things they talked about is that the techniques and you have to have the right techniques with the right student at the right time. But the thing that was interesting is they also said that you have to be able to explain and get them to understand, and that's what makes it perfect. So it's like, if someone were to do my laundry, they'd have to know how to do my laundry and do it in a perfect way. They can't just do laundry, right? But most students is like, I just did the laundry. I just went and they just do it in a mindless way.
Is there a collateral benefit to this type of training? I mean, I generally don't like arguments about how, well, the way I do Aikido affected the way I do business. But as a philosophy, does that kind of, like, so I think about it is it's all about consideration in a sense. And so does that translate to someone's marriage, to being a father?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It translates. This type of relationship is the highest level of training. because you become sensitive and you go, oh, that person has a stomach ache.
Right.
That person had a bad day at work. And then you learn to deal with them in that sense and not just, push your way through.
And then what my understanding is, I learned more off the mat with my teacher than just Ikkyo, Nikkyo, Sankyo, Yonkyo. But being off the mat with sensei made the training on the mat more, I guess, effective. Like I was able to get more because I was just on all the time. And you would see like just doing a technique versus being with sensei and taking care of him. To me, those are almost two different mindsets. And ideally they become one where like you see the technique, everything about the technique. You see sensei, you see everything about sensei, and you deal with them accordingly. Would you say that's kind of
Yeah. When Furu Sensei was alive, things were a little bit different. Today, do students get enough outside the mat interaction with you for that to take place? Right? People don't have time for it, right?
people don't have time for it and people don't have the stomach for it. And even me, I don't know if I could be that kind of person when a student being like, no, don't do this, don't do that. Oh my God, you ordered the wrong thing. What's wrong with you? Type of thing. I mean,
I don't have it either.
I don't I can't be that.
I'm way too much a student than a teacher. And so like I'll tell you a story. Me, Ken, a couple other people, and says they went to get this restaurant and they all got ramen. I got chicken teriyaki and rice. Theirs came real fast. They just ate it super fast. And says he goes, "What did you order?" And then kind of tore me down for what I ordered. And then they got up and then said, "Meet us at the supermarket." And I was just sitting there like, okay, like there was no like, oh, we'll just sit around and wait for David's food to get here, then we'll all start eating, or we'll all just sit here and talk with keep David coming. No, I got chastised for what I ordered, and then they said, when you're done, meet us at the supermarket.
Wow.
And they just walked out, and you're kind of like, oh damn. Today I couldn't do that to a student. I would, if the three of us went to eat, I would always order along the lines of what you guys order, so that it all comes out at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm aware of what you ordered, and when Ken's ramen doesn't show up, I'd be like getting like, where's that ramen at?
Yeah.
And then I'd have to go, excuse me, we had one more ramen.
Right.
Like I wouldn't just leave him there.
I mean, I have an interesting story, something like that. This is a different tea ceremony story, but we went to a tea ceremony and then everybody was eating the meal, and then we all finished. No, like you're supposed to time your eating so everybody finishes at the same time. And then my friend does that too. He times it so we all finish at the same time. He doesn't go and then just waiting there.
Thank God I do.
Yeah, you eat and just waiting there because the other person goes, oh, he's finished. I gotta hurry up too. Like you don't want to create that kind of tension, that rush. But I mean, martial artists eat fast and they go to the bathroom fast and they change fast. They do everything fast. But I mean, this is all timing, right?
But the thing is today as a teacher, we spend a lot of time creating inclusivity.
Yes.
And that today you can't keep the doors open being exclusive. I mean, you make it a, niche boutique Aikido dojo. Yeah, but you've got like 20 mats.
Yeah.
But most schools can't
do that.
Can't,
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
And that's what is hurting the martial arts today.
What do you mean?
Like there's a teacher she was a student of a famous teacher, and then I heard that the teacher didn't really like her and then would beat her up all the time. And then the teacher died. She's the only one left, and now she is the name holder of their organization. And she wasn't very good, and then she just outlasted them.
Right.
And you think that's why today that type of thinking didn't work. Right. Because if you were lucky, that student stayed on, and then they became the teacher. But a lot of teachers, they'll have that luck.
I mean, my understanding, I was told, is Richard Morihei is called O Sensei, not because he was undefeatable and a great martial artist. He created more than one complete expert in the art, whereas some martial arts teachers create nobody, or they're lucky to have one. I mean, even Ito Sai from the Ito Ryu, he got two people, had them fight, and what I heard was the better person lost.
Yeah.
And the crappier person went on to continue the school.
No, and then the next part of the story was that the crappier student challenged the teacher
Yeah.
and killed
And killed him. Yeah, he found and he killed him. So, I mean, like, that's a crazy story. You think, oh, the transition is smooth, but no, it's not. And,
or the person that ends up taking over has no talent.
no.
So, trying to extract this like student-teacher relationship, we talked about pre-Meiji, we talked about post-Meiji, post-World War II, this kind of behavior in terms of like spending time with your teacher externally to develop your training. Are we in a third or fourth martial arts age? Is there something?
I don't know what number would be, but it's different today that you have people that are coming to the art older. Because remember, we're talking about people who started the 6 years, 6 months, 6 days stuff, right? So today, people are coming to the art older, right? But then the thing is, what's good about that is a lot of them are already professionals.
Their mindset is developed.
Well, yeah, if you're a lawyer, you know how to get things done and you know how to be. Right. So to tweaking them to make them an Aikidoist or Yaidoist is not that hard.
Right. Yeah.
But the thing is that you're trying to find that person, like if we think about it in my terms, that person is somewhere between 10 and 25 years old that will end up taking over the school. So you like look at them and you're like, who's this person going to be? And then you got to get them through high school. Then you got to get them through college.
Maybe
and grad school and getting married and all those things. And then they go, yes, I would like to be the teacher.
Yeah, good luck on that.
Like every step, the odds start going up against you. I know a lot of famous teachers, a lot of well-known, high-ranked teachers that they don't have anymore.
Yeah.
They don't have no one. Mm-hmm. The school's going to close when they die, and they just go.
I remember both of you talked about this, that other schools or other martial artists were super surprised that we endured.
Everyone is surprised they get used to it. Well, they don't say it anymore. They do. In that first couple of years, they're like, you're still around? You're still here? Wow, I can't believe it.
Yeah, because normally the teacher dies, everything dies.
Yeah, it's a cult of personality.
Yeah, what did they say? If the school can last 3 generations, like for example, Aikido, then they're okay.
Yeah.
But after Sensei passed away, it could have just easily boom,
died,
fell.
Yeah. We're seeing the same thing with generational wealth.
Yes. Yeah.
We get into the third generation is probably going to be
stay there.
But most people drank it or smoked it away in the second generation.
Yeah. As we're getting near the end, I think one of the things that's really struck me is the passion of both of you in terms of your experience as students, your experience as senior teachers, and all of ours relationship to our teacher that we had as we grew into the Aikido art. I also think it's super interesting that both of you talk about how the student-teacher relationship has changed as the cultural context of martial arts changed. Is there like a parting shot for, because I think most of this is for the benefit of the students. Is there a parting shot on student-teacher that neither of you have covered already that you'd like the lasting thought for someone to say, oh yeah, this has been really illuminating. What's the next step?
Furita Sensei told me one time, he said, being a teacher is the only reward a teacher can get, he told me, is seeing their students improve and get good. Because that's the only thing that, it seemed like that's the only thing that really mattered. I don't know if that's true or not. And even me, like when I see like a student go from nothing to something, I'm like, oh yeah, like,
yeah, it's exciting.
Like I kind of helped him do that. I mean, I know that it's really up to the student to practice hard because I cannot make them practice hard. I'm not going to force them to practice hard. All right. They don't have to want to get good.
What about you, Sensei?
I don't think it matters if it's the Tokugawa era, the Meiji era, Sengoku period, or 2095. It's all the same. The student must apply themselves to understand and know without being told. And then if you can do that, then somehow the art is in your body. If you have to wait to be told or wait for it to be explained, the art's not really in your body. But if you can train hard to understand, then you will know. And then because you know, you don't have to be told. And then the art will continue on.
I mean, wasn't it you that said the teacher only gives 50%?
Well, that was the Kojima Sensei from Zenshu.
That's what you've said. And also the metaphor about the teacher only shows the student 3 legs of a chair, and it's up to the student to find the 4th leg through their own effort, training, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, so I don't really think it's the era. Students are the same.
Yeah.
Now the era is just that you think all information is readily available at your fingertips, and then that gives you that you know. But you must try to train to understand, and then you will know. So it's okay.
I think that's a pretty good spot for us to wrap.
Well, thank you for watching or listening, and don't forget to like or subscribe to this content.